as has been known, there has never been any honest brokers, both in relation to Palestine and certainly in relation to Kashmir. What has happened over time is that more facts on the ground have been created, and we cannot leave it to the governments of the US and certainly Israel, or indeed Mr. Modi's BJP RSS Hindutva, to continue to proceed apace. So I want to also clarify the fact that Hinduism and Hindutva are indeed diametrically opposed. Hindutva is the weaponized form of Hinduism. So there is nothing much in that regard that is holy or even religious. I want to continue that by saying that under Mr. Modi's regime, the policies and politics of oppression, dispossession, ethnic cleansing, war crimes, and a lot more have been committed before the eyes of the international community. Now, the international community is very much part and parcel of all of the international legal norms that have been formulated. Yet the international community seems to favor investment and trade over the primacy of life, and indeed over the primacy of upholding those legal norms that they are obliged to respect and uphold. So what Kashmir is in need of is not development, because once Kashmir attains whatever the will of the people of Kashmir decides to realize, is basically the right to self-determination, which is not just a basic but a fundamental right. And that right is enshrined in international law. So once that is achieved, the people of Kashmir will be able to go about devising their own policies, economic, financial, and etc., as all nation states do. I want to say that I'm speaking as a member of civil society. Indeed, the role of civil society is shrinking in every single forum. And it's important that we continue to hear the voice of civil society. Now, I'm delighted to hear that the JAK coalition of civil society has been indeed quoted many times by the US state and also by the UN. And that's extraordinary, because facts on the ground by people who are at the receiving end have been recorded and have been used with a view to facilitate the work in terms of formalizing all of that evidence and providing that evidence so that it is put in the public domain. So we have many different mechanisms that can be resorted to within the framework of the UN. My main concern is that the UN has been held to ransom, chiefly because of its main funder, namely the US. And had every other member of the Security Council, particularly the 5 permanent members, done what they are supposed to do, and that is to uphold the rule of law and honor all of the treaties, conventions that they are signatories to, surely the rule of law and human rights violations would be far more minimized. They would be the exception rather than the rule. So my suggestion in terms of what can be done is for us to work together far more coherently, in a manner which is far more joined up and cohesive, and obviously to work together with a view to devise a coherent policy which must be adopted by all governments in terms of their foreign policy on Kashmir, and to have a physical ambassador representing not only the voice but also the will of the people of Kashmir within every single government. So being French, I just want to say that my village, my region, was invaded and occupied by the Nazis. And the people who fought against the Nazis, people who resisted the Nazis, are normally celebrated as freedom fighters. So in the interest of minimizing the effects of language when it is weaponized, we need to really redress and correct the narrative. We need to remind ourselves that people have, first of all, an inherent right to protect themselves, to protect the lives of their loved ones, but that right was also enshrined in international law after the Second World War. And that right clearly stipulates that people have a right to resist, whether peacefully or whether by armed resistance. So we need to make sure that those who decide to go down the route of the armed wing resistance, we need to remind everyone that these people are not terrorists, that they are freedom fighters. If there were freedom fighters in my country during the occupation, Nazi occupation of France, and they are celebrated as members of the French resistance, surely we need to remind ourselves and of the fact that all those who also worked to free themselves from the yoke of the French occupation in Algeria, the yoke of the Afrikaners occupation in South Africa, the yoke of the Israeli occupation in Israel, in Palestine, the yoke of the BJP RSS occupation in Kashmir, all of those are freedom fighters. And if there is any form of terrorist, it is the state-sanctioned terrorist that we have seen raging completely unfettered, without any kind of objections on behalf of the international community, which is seemingly, which has tended to conduct itself in a manner which is supine and only use terms such as condemn, deplores, and urges. Well, these are not enough. It's about time that we consider the prospect of and reality of imposing sanctions on India, because the government of Mr. Modi is lawless. There is nothing remotely constitutional, democratic, secular, pluralistic, or even egalitarian under Mr. Modi's regime. And in fact, we have all seen that even within India, atrocities have been perpetrated against Indian Muslims and every other faith minorities. So again, that proves that Mr. Modi is not intending to conduct himself in terms of the policies and politics and associate them with a system of governance which is democratic. And very much akin to the politics of Israel, which is all about the geography and not the demography. And what has happened in Palestine is that Israel has been gifted all things to do with privileges and rights, and Palestinians have been burdened with all things pertaining to responsibilities. So clearly the asymmetries couldn't be clearer and couldn't be more evident. And in the case of Kashmir, at the moment, we still have an opportunity for preventing that which has happened in Palestine. And we must act together jointly so as to be far more coherent and effective. So I think that's pretty much my time, but if I have a few more minutes, I'd like to say that from an international solidarity perspective, speaking as civil society, I am obviously in solidarity and stand in solidarity with Kashmir, the Kashmiris and the people of and Palestinians and all people who struggle to achieve self-determination. I think that we should join up all of our liberation struggles with a view to create one body, one international solidarity movement advocating on behalf of all people who struggle to achieve their right to self-determine. And on that basis, I think my time is up.